The Surface has always been Microsoft's poster child for going head-to-head with the ever-popular MacBook. Though in my own opinion, it's always lacked that wee bit of spice to make it a truly compelling sell. But I reckon this is the first generation for the Surface in a long time that really feels like proper competition. And here's why. Here we have two of the newest Surface products for 2024. The Surface Laptop as well as the new Surface Pro. Coming from Microsoft themselves, these products represent what they believe is the most ideal Windows experience at a time when AI is seemingly making its way into every facet of our lives. It's a bit of a touchy subject, but if there is anything to take away from all of this being shoved down our throats, it's that, at the very least, it's enabling some really interesting PC hardware, especially for laptops. Top level, there are significant gains to be had here thanks to the inclusion of new Snapdragon X SoCs. These are ARM-based processors that are especially designed to take on the Apple Silicon ARM chips people have been raving about on MacBooks. But how does this translate into real-world use? Well, I've been using both the Surface Laptop and Surface Pro for about 3 weeks now, and I gotta say, the experience is way better than I had expected, and Apple might have some serious competition this time in key areas such as performance, efficiency, and especially battery life. Full disclosure, Microsoft sent both of these devices out to us for review, and they basically share the same hardware on the inside. Equipped with the Snapdragon X Elite with a 12-core CPU, as well as 16 gigabytes of RAM and 512 gigs of storage. If we're looking at benchmarks alone, these Snapdragon chips are not just capable, but also powerful as heck. Compared to the Apple M3 and M4, the X Elite might not necessarily top Apple full stop, but are within a close enough margin, especially considering the slow development that we've seen on the Surface side in the past. Now, anyone that's been remotely following the Windows on ARM saga over the years knows that raw performance can ultimately mean jack if the OS and software aren't optimized for it. But thankfully, with some back-end optimization, the user experience this time around is quite good, at least for most things. To be fair, a lot of what I do personally on these types of computers is on the web, and Edge obviously runs very well on here. But even graphic design apps such as Photoshop, which I use to edit my YouTube thumbnails, runs amazing. By working directly with a large number of major app developers and services, Microsoft is putting serious groundwork to improve the ARM experience compared to where it was in the past. And considering that this Snapdragon on PC story isn't just about the Surface, when these PCs are marketed and sold to everyday people that might not necessarily know what they're buying, things better be solid. That being said, however, there are plenty of applications out there that might not officially support ARM. But to ensure seamless operation for the end user, Microsoft hopes that Prism can bridge the gap. This is an emulation layer for x86 built natively into Windows 11 that's designed to allow unsupported programs to still work with ARM hardware. Basically, it's for Windows what Rosetta 2 is for the Mac and Apple Silicon. Now, if Apple's Intel to ARM transition is the benchmark for a smooth rollout, this evolution of Windows 11 to better support ARM is still not quite at that caliber, though it is a significant improvement to where Windows was even a year ago. In practice, it actually works rather well, especially for the little things such as utilities and app installers that are all too important in Windows 11. All that stuff certainly adds up, though as I found in my testing, don't expect the world from it in terms of performance and compatibility. But then on the flip side, you have apps like OBS, which are not natively optimized for ARM, but actually works surprisingly well for me on emulation. All this to say, your mileage will vary for how apps work with Prism, which is kind of understandable given the sheer amount of programs out there for Windows. Of course, these devices are aimed for more casual use and productivity, But even still, I can't help but be a little curious about what gaming is like on these Snapdragon X Elite systems. And honestly, while I wouldn't get it specifically for this purpose by any stretch, it's not awful. In fact, this machine actually gives me a little bit of hope for future optimization here. For example, I played some Yakuza 0. That worked extremely well with smooth frame rates all around. Though, naturally, tons of games at this point in time also have problems. Trackmania would probably run well on this level of hardware if it wasn't crashing so much. But really, the biggest issue that I found is actually with anti-cheat systems. Riot Vanguard was very much not happy with letting this system work, preventing games such as Valorant and League of Legends from loading. Though maybe that's a feature, not a bug. The same thing with Fall Guys, and presumably anything using easy anti-cheat. I expect this to be ironed out at some point in the future, but until then, proper gaming on Snapdragon is more than an arm's length away. Terrible joke. But at least it's more than what can be said about Apple. Speaking of which, something that MacBooks do very well is power management. Whether you are plugged into a wall or running on battery, systems like this very powerful M1 Max MacBook Pro basically run full tilt while also providing excellent battery life. However, look on the Windows side of things, and power management is not as refined. Which is to say, if you want the most performance, you'll have to keep this plugged into a wall. You're not going to really notice this when running lightweight tasks throughout the day, but if you want as much power as possible while maybe photoshopping or editing video in DaVinci Resolve, definitely keep that charger handy. All this being said, while we are getting throttled performance unplugged, what I did like seeing was a major improvement in battery life, especially compared to the Intel-based machines of the past. On many occasions, this Surface Pro lasted me well through a workday with leftover charge for some video streaming in the evening. And when it came to this Surface laptop, it was even better than that. However, taking a step back from all this, let's talk about pricing with these brand new Surfaces. There are plenty of SKUs across both Surface Laptop and Surface Pro, but of note, both of them start at $999, and standard include 16 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigs of SSD storage, and also include a Snapdragon X Plus SoC, the lower-end counterpart to the X Elite with 2 less cores. Now, I can't speak for the performance of this since I don't have it in for testing, but on paper, I think these machines should offer pretty good value as well, especially compared to the base MacBook Air, which has a 2-year-old M2 chip, as well as only 8 gigabytes of RAM. In fact, you need to spend $1,200 on that machine if you want to match both the RAM and storage, and add an extra $100 on top of that if you would like to upgrade it to the newer, more efficient M3 chip. Granted, there is a bit of nuance on the Surface end as well when it comes to value compared to a MacBook. While it's nice that you get comparable build quality that feels just as premium as a MacBook, specifically with the Surface Pro, since it doesn't come with a type cover or pen as usual, you'll have to factor those into the budget if you want a more complete setup, which can get very expensive. This guy costs $1,500. And when you add on this fancy new Flex keyboard set that works wirelessly over Bluetooth, which is super convenient, this whole thing will run you just shy of $2,000. These higher end trims do at least come with a beautiful looking OLED display, but with that money, you can buy a base M3 Pro MacBook Pro, which besides the fact that it runs macOS, is a way better buy considering the performance you're getting. The Surface laptop is much better sorted for value considering that it has those peripherals built into it already. The laptop does lose out on pen support this generation, unfortunately, though I don't think people looking at the laptop will miss it that much. In fact, without the extra hardware needed for it, The 120Hz display looks much better. Though I do wish that for the higher end models, like with the Pro, that they gave us an OLED option as well, given the price point. That's all I got for now. Let me know what you think about these new Surface products in the comments below. And otherwise, thanks for watching this video on Denki channel.